समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
The inferno lies below, a landscape made up of bombs, fire, and rubble. Their wings elevating them above this carnage, two angels, one bearing the name of the Prophet of Islam and the other of the Israelites, wish each other peace. The cartoon published in the Turkish satirical magazine Leman is open to many readings. Is it that those condemned to live in war can only discover their shared humanity after leaving life behind? Or alternately, is it that the angels have abandoned their followers on earth, learning that piety cannot tame the savagery of the faithful fighting below? Earlier this week, police in Istanbul fired rubber bullets and tear gas into a mob seeking to attack a bar where staff of Leman magazine had retreated after the supposedly blasphemous cartoon went to print. The country's interior minister, Ali Yerlikaya, has promised legal action against the cartoonist, graphic designer, and editors of Leman, vowing that, and I quote, these shameless individuals will be held accountable before the law. Across Turkey, anti-secular billboards and posters have been put up on the streets. Though no one was killed in the Istanbul violence, it's becoming clear that Turkey, once the progressive cultural powerhouse of the Middle East, is starting to look a little bit more like Pakistan each week. The country's septuagenarian ruler, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is even working to dismantle the constitution, which mandates that, and I quote, sacred religious feelings shall absolutely not be involved in state affairs and politics as required by the principle of secularism. Extreme religious violence isn't, of course, unknown in Turkey. 37 people were burned to death in 1993 after mobs attacked a cultural festival of the Alevi sect, attended among others by the Turkish translator of Salman Rushdie's book, The Satanic Verses. The proscription of books, arrests of opposition leaders, and the repression of ethnic minorities have been an ugly feature of Turkey's republic from its founding years. However, the country's social and cultural life remains highly sophisticated and liberal, and not just by the grim standards of Middle East despotisms. Erdogan's true legacy, the violence in Istanbul suggests, might be demolishing the foundations on which Turkish pluralism has rested. Founding father Mustafa Kemal Ataturk's epoch-defining construction of Republican Turkey from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire aimed to create a new civilization that could negotiate the modern industrial world. The religious orders that wielded enormous influence in the imperial court were closed down in 1925. Far-reaching reforms were introduced on how men and women ought to dress, including the rejection of the traditional fez cap and encouraging women to give up the headscarf and the loose-fitting outer garment, a little like the burqa you see in India. In 1928, the Latin script replaced the Arabic script, a tool to demolish the power of the clerical class. The same year, Islam was removed as the state religion. To Ataturk, it seemed that the reconstruction of Islam itself was necessary in the modern era. So he established the Presidency of Religious Affairs to oversee the conduct of the faith. The clergy were transformed into state employees responsible for delivering sermons dictated by the authorities. Imams were even ordered to allow musical instruments into mosques, and failing that were provided with gramophones and records of the kind of music that had to be played. Even the wearing of shoes inside mosques was encouraged. This state-enforced religion, scholar Nevzat Shelik has noted in a very thoughtful essay, brought about enormous transformation, but it also stifled the organic evolution of civic life and marked secularism with the taint of authoritarianism. As Ataturk's legacy slowly faded and Turkey became more shaped by Cold War anti-communism, religion started to become a language of protest for the peasantry and bourgeoisie. According to the historian David Tong, from 1980 onward, things really began to come to a head. The faltering economy fed communal tensions. 50 died in massacres in Horum, where Turkish ultra-nationalists attacked Alevis. As left-wing groups battled fascists on the streets, the fights claimed dozens of lives every day. The opposition politician Necmettin Erbakan used Islam to attack Prime Minister Bülent Ecevit, calling for Turkey to be made an Islamic state. The military stepped in finally to end the chaos. Turkey woke up on the 12th of September 1980 to find itself under military rule. To some, this seemed like just a passing phase. The country had after all been subjected to coups in 1960 and 1971. The generals hadn't even troubled themselves to send the tanks out on the streets the second time, instead simply sending a memorandum to the parliament. Led by General Kenan Evren, the National Security Council realized it needed to come to terms with the social forces that were now sweeping Turkey. Though secularism continued to be promoted as a guiding principle, religious education was reintroduced in primary and secondary schools. The government of Prime Minister Turgut Özal, which was elected in 1983, also instrumentalized religion. His education minister Vehbi Dinçerler banned the teaching of evolution and instructed clerical schools to teach that Turks had been, I quote, leaders in the rise and dissemination of Islam throughout the world. Later, Özal became the first Prime Minister of Turkey to make the Hajj pilgrimage while in office, leading a delegation of several hundred members of parliament and senior civil servants to Mecca. The opposition media Tong writes savaged Özal, publishing pictures of him in his ritual ihram towels and contrasting those with images of his wife in her cocktail dress smoking one of her trademark cigars. Erbakan's rise to power in 1996 marked a further shift in political direction away from secularism. His first trip abroad was to Tehran in defiance of the United States and then to Libya. He also tried to launch a D8 group of Muslim nations as an alternative to the West's G7 group of economically developed countries. The ban on women civil servants wearing the headscarf was removed. The generals concerned presented Erbakan with 18 directives, 10 of which concerned the defense of secularism. Kemalism, after all, was critical to the army's identity. Then, in April that year, the military declared reactionary Islam to be more dangerous to Turkey than Kurdish secessionists or even wars. Television stations, radio broadcasters, and newspapers considered sympathetic to the Islamists were shut down. That wasn't the end of the story, though. From 1999, the European Union sought to stabilize its eastern frontiers by drawing Turkey into the transnational body. The demands for civil liberties and freedoms that were now placed on Turkey's military gutted the institution's political power. Led by Erdogan, the Adalet ve Kalkınma Partisi, AKP or Justice and Development Party, was founded in 2001, bringing together a disparate coalition of Islamists, most of whom had loose links with the Muslim Brotherhood. To the world, however, the AKP presented itself as a pro-West, reformist, moderate and neoliberal party. Europe and the United States bought the story. Former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice declared that the AKP was, I quote, a government dedicated to pulling Turkey westward towards Europe. President Barack Obama gushed about a model partnership with Turkey. Erdogan has also used the same kind of language about Trump. The practice of AKP power, however, has proved to be at odds with this image. For one, as the party faced growing competition from its political rivals, it's made increasing use of religion. Those with greater commitments to liberal democratic norms carried greater weight at the outset, only to lose their power and influence to the electoralists. Political scientist Shabnam Gumusko has written in her book Democracy or Authoritarianism. The signs of Erdogan's commitment to Islamism became increasingly evident. The new school curriculum introduced in 2017 saw the removal of the theory of evolution and increased emphasis on religious values. The word jihad was included as an essential part of Islam. And then, a year short of the centennial of the founding republic, came the ultimate symbolic blow. He opened the Hagia Sophia Church for Islamic prayers, reversing Kemal Ataturk's decision to turn it into a museum equally shared between the country's faiths. Erdogan's beliefs are making themselves evident beyond Turkish borders too. Syria's new government has also been accused of complicity in the killings of religious minorities. The writing over the Le Mans cartoon might not be big compared to these events, but it signals the rise of a Turkey diminished by its obsession with greatness. A country that's ceased to be a force of change and become a prisoner of resentments and hatreds. This smaller, meaner Turkey of the blasphemy rioter and the sectarian killer will be Erdogan's abiding legacy. I'm Praveen Swami and I'm a contributing editor at ThePrint. Thank you for watching this episode of Security Code.